Did you ever feel the ground shift beneath you, knowing the truth but unable to speak it? My name is Derek Montrose. 43, a former Army intelligence officer now living in a quiet Connecticut suburb where the picket fences hide more than they reveal. I've spent years analyzing patterns, spotting lies in war zones, but nothing prepared me for the betrayal in my own home. My wife Jessica and our 9-year-old daughter Chloe were my world until the world started cracking. The tension began with small signs like whispers of smoke before a fire. Jessica's phone flipped face down at dinner, her late nights at the office, the sudden showers when she walked through the door. I didn't want to believe it, but my training taught me to see what others miss. Something was coming, a storm I couldn't outrun, and it would test everything I'd learned about patience, silence, and the sharpness of truth. I'm sitting at the kitchen table, the kind of polished oak that smells faintly of lemon cleaner, watching Jessica push her peas around her plate. It's the 10th night in 2 weeks she's turned her phone over screen, kissing the wood like it's hiding a secret it can't wait to spill. Chloe's upstairs, probably sketching or lost in one of her adventure books, her laughter a distant echo. Jessica's eyes dart to her phone, then back to me, her smile thin as a blade. Long day at the firm, she says, voice smooth but clipped like she's reciting lines. I nod, sip my coffee, cold now, and let the silence sit heavy between us. I don't ask questions, not yet. My years in intelligence taught me that asking gives the game away. Instead, I watch. The first sign was small, but it stuck like a splinter. 2 weeks ago, Jessica started coming home later, her briefcase slung over her shoulder. Her hair damp from a shower she claimed she took at the office gym. Client meetings, she'd say, but her eyes wouldn't meet mine, and the air around her felt cold, detached, like she was already halfway out the door. I didn't push. I pulled credit card statements instead. A dinner charge from a downtown bistro not near her office, time-stamped 8:47 p.m. I called the restaurant casual as a curious husband and confirmed table for 2 reservation under Reed. My pulse didn't spike. My hands didn't shake. I've tracked insurgents through deserts. This was just another pattern to unravel. I spent the next 48 hours piecing it together, quiet as a ghost. Hotel charges on a card she thought I didn't check. Duplicate calendar entries labeled depositions that didn't match her firm's schedule. 2 lipstick-stained wine glasses in the dishwasher when we'd only opened 1 bottle that week. Then the name Austin Reed, a real estate developer with a trail of divorces and a reputation for charming women into bad decisions. His digital footprint was loud LinkedIn profiles, glossy articles about his luxury condos, photos with women who weren't Jessica, but might as well have been. He was the kind of man who led with his wallet and let his smirk clean up the rest. I didn't know him, but I knew his type, and I knew this was personal. It's a rainy Thursday when I come home early. Jessica's car is in the driveway, a black Mercedes parked 2 spaces down. The house smells of her perfume, heavy and sweet, mixed with something else, cologne sharp and unfamiliar. Jazz hums from the living room speaker, low and deliberate. A pair of polished leather men's shoes sit by the door, too neat, too confident. I don't call out. Silence is my ally, always has been. I pull out my phone, hit record, and climb the stairs, each step soft as a whisper. The bedroom doors ajar, voices slipping through, laughter, then hushed words, the kind that don't need explaining. I stand there just long enough to capture the truth, then turn back. Downstairs, I wait, my coffee cup still in hand, the rain tapping the windows like a warning. An hour later, they come down, Jessica's hair smoothed, Austin buttoning his jacket like he's in a hurry to nowhere. She freezes when she sees me, her face pale as the walls. Austin. Though he smirks like this is all a game he's already won. Derek, he says, voice slick. Didn't expect you back so soon. These things happen, man. I look him in the eye, my face a mask of calm. You have no idea what I'm capable of providing, Austin. But you will. Jessica tries to speak, but I'm already walking out, the rain hitting my skin like sparks. I don't yell, I don't break. This isn't the moment I lose control, it's the moment I start planning. Jessica thinks she's clever, but she's left a trail wider than a highway. My training kicks in, not the kind that breaks doors, but the kind that breaks lies. I've got audio now, timestamps, receipts. I'm not building a case for court yet, I'm building a cage. They'll walk into it themselves because people like them always do. Chloe's upstairs, oblivious, her crayons scattered across her desk. I pause at her door, hearing her hum softly, and my chest tightens. This isn't about me anymore. It's about her, about keeping her safe from the storm that's coming. I close my eyes, breathe, and let the plan take shape. Patience isn't weakness. It's the sharpest weapon I've got. The rain soaked through my shirt as I stepped into the driveway, but it felt like nothing compared to the chill settling in my bones. I drove aimlessly for an hour, the wipers slashing back and forth, my mind already mapping out the terrain ahead. This wasn't a battlefield with clear enemies. It was my life fractured by the people who were supposed to be my allies. By the time I returned home that night, the Mercedes was gone, and Jessica was waiting in the living room. Her eyes red-rimmed, her posture defensive. She tried to explain, stumbling over words about how things had gotten complicated, how Austin was just a distraction from our routine. I didn't interrupt. I sat across from her, hands folded, letting her words fill the space like smoke. When she finished pleading for understanding, I simply stood and went upstairs to check on Chloe. She was asleep, her small face peaceful under the glow of her nightlight, clutching a stuffed bear I'd brought back from a deployment. That sight hardened my resolve. Whatever came next, it would be for her. The weekend passed in a haze of forced normalcy. Jessica avoided me, burying herself in her laptop, while I took Chloe to the park, pushing her on the swings as she giggled about school friends and summer plans. Inside, I was cataloging everything, the audio from my phone, timestamps from the credit cards, even the faint scent of Austin's cologne lingering on the couch cushions. I knew confrontation would play into their hands, make me look unstable, reactive. Instead, I prepared. By Monday morning, Jessica had packed a bag and left for a hotel. Her note on the counter brief: "We need space. I'll be in touch about Chloe." I read it once, folded it neatly, and added it to my growing file. That's when the real assault began. She retained Richard Hoffman, a shark in a suit with a reputation for turning divorces into spectacles. I'd heard of him through mutual acquaintances in the legal world, aggressive, theatrical, the kind who believed in winning by any means, even if it meant scorching the earth behind him. Jessica's strategy was clear from the start: discredit me, use my military past as a weapon. The filings hit my inbox like artillery fire. Accusations thick as a dossier. I'd monitored her for years, bugged her phone, hacked her emails, manipulated Chloe emotionally. She claimed fear for our daughter's safety, painting me as a man haunted by unaddressed PTSD, unable to distinguish between war and family. A ticking time bomb, she called me hiding behind medals and discipline. It was a narrative crafted for maximum impact, leaning on public fears of veterans, twisting my surveillance skills into proof of obsession. I sat in my home office, the room dim, with only the desk lamp casting shadows on the walls, scrolling through the documents. Screenshots of texts I never sent, voicemails pieced together like a bad edit, even a photo of my old military notepad with notes they claimed were tactical plans for custody pickups. Absurd, but effective in a courtroom where perception often trumps reality. Hoffman didn't believe in compromise. He believed in annihilation. And Jessica was his willing instrument. I could picture her in his office rehearsing her lines, her voice trembling just so. But I didn't react. No calls to my lawyer in a panic, no angry emails. I breathed steady and deep, the way I'd learned in training exercises where panic meant failure. This was their opening salvo. Mine would come later, unseen. The preliminary hearing was a theater of lies. Austin sat behind Jessica, his smug expression like a mask pretending to be the supportive partner. To others he might have looked genuine, but I saw the performance, the way his eyes flicked to his phone, the subtle shift in his seat when Hoffman ramped up the drama. Jessica testified first, her voice cracking at the perfect moments. She described me as cold, unpredictable, distant, weaving tales of coded conversations and military routines turned into psychological games. The courtroom absorbed it, some jurors nodding, others glancing at me with doubt. Hoffman dove in deeper, introducing fabricated timelines suggesting I'd been shadowing her long before the affair. He blurred my cybersecurity work with personal intrusion, calling me a man who never switched off the mission, who saw threats in every shadow, and treated his wife like an adversary. I sat there silent, my attorney Patricia Mills beside me, her notes minimal. She knew my plan, or at least the parts I'd shared. No outbursts, no denials. Because I wasn't building a defense in that room, I was constructing something more enduring outside it. While they flooded the court with fiction, I'd already started my work. Quietly, precisely. I had recordings not just of the affair, but of their whispers about provoking me, making me seem dangerous. Audio of Jessica coaching Chloe on what to say to social workers. Austin joking about how easy it was to turn judges against military vets. They thought they were clever that I was broken, but I was listening, learning. In the quiet of my apartment that night, Jessica had the house now per temporary orders. I reviewed the day's transcripts, each accusation another brick in their wall, but also leverage for me. The air in the apartment was stale, the kind that comes from too many takeout containers and not enough open windows. I poured a glass of water, stared at the city lights flickering outside, and let the weight settle. Chloe was with Jessica for the week, her small voice on the phone earlier asking when I'd see her next. Soon, I promised, keeping my tone light. This war wasn't about rage, it was about precision. They'd laid the foundation for their own collapse, and I was content to watch them build it higher. Austin's arrogance, Jessica's ambition, they were hammering in the nails themselves. My rule: never react emotionally. That's how they win. I wouldn't break it now. I was patient, methodical, and ready. The silence wasn't surrender, it was strategy. The courtroom smelled of polished wood and stale coffee, the kind that lingers in government buildings where lives get dissected under fluorescent lights. I adjusted my tie, feeling the fabric tight against my throat, but my expression stayed neutral, a skill honed from briefings where showing weakness could cost everything. Patricia Mills sat beside me, her briefcase open, but she wasn't scribbling furiously like Hoffman across the aisle. She trusted my approach, or at least tolerated it. The preliminary hearing dragged on, each word from the other side like a calculated jab probing for cracks. Jessica had built her case on fear, twisting my service into something sinister, and Hoffman amplified it with courtroom flair. I watched the judge Caroline write, her pen tapping lightly as she listened, her face a mask of impartiality. But I knew better judges read people too, and I wasn't giving her anything to misinterpret. Jessica took the stand, her hands clasped in her lap, looking every bit the victim she'd rehearsed to be. Her voice trembled just enough to sell the emotion, describing me as a man who'd brought the war home cold and detached, always watching, always planning. She spoke of nights where I'd stare out the window, lost in thoughts she claimed were flashbacks, though I'd never shared those with her. "He's unpredictable," she said, her eyes welling up. "Emotionally distant, like he's still on a mission." The words landed heavy in the room, some spectators shifting uncomfortably, glancing my way. Hoffman nodded along, then took over, his voice booming as he introduced evidence, screenshots, timelines, all fabricated but presented with such conviction they might as well have been gospel. He painted my intelligence training as obsession, my cybersecurity job as a cover for spying on my family. "This man sees enemies everywhere," he declared, "and treats his own wife like one." I didn't flinch. My hands stayed folded on the table, my breathing even. Inside, though, the accusations burned like slow acid. They'd submitted a military-issued notepad, photo scribbles they called tactical notes about Chloe's pickups, implying I was plotting some escape. Absurd, but it preyed on fears, the quiet veteran, the one who snaps without warning. Public discomfort with what they didn't understand gave it weight. Austin sat a row back, his smirk barely hidden, like he was enjoying the show. To the untrained eye, he was supportive. To me, he was a prop in their performance. They were burying me under lies, using the skills I'd been praised for as proof of instability. But reacting would validate their narrative, make me the hothead they wanted. So I stayed silent, letting the storm rage around me. Patricia leaned in, once whispering if I wanted to counter. I shook my head subtly. This wasn't the time for defense. It was for observation. While they twisted the truth into spectacle, I'd already begun my counter in the shadows. I had audio files stacking up, not just the affair, but their planning sessions, whispers about how to provoke me into looking dangerous. Jessica instructing Chloe on scripted answers for the psychologist Austin, laughing about flipping courts against weekend warriors. They thought I was isolated, broken. But in my apartment, every filing they submitted became leverage, every attack a data point. Jessica didn't know it, but she was architecting her own downfall. Austin's vanity was the hammer. That night after the hearing, I drove to pick up Chloe from my visitation window. Our house felt foreign now, Jessica's car in the driveway like a sentinel. Chloe ran out, her backpack slung over one shoulder, her smile lighting up the dusk. "Daddy," she called, hugging me tight, her small arms a reminder of why I endured. We went for ice cream sitting on a park bench as she chattered about school art projects and a new friend named Mia. I listened nodding, but my mind cataloged the subtle changes, her hesitance when mentioning Mommy, the way she glanced at me like she was checking if I was okay. Jessica's influence was seeping in, but Chloe's eyes held trust pure and untainted. "Are you sad?" she asked, suddenly, spoon midway to her mouth. I smiled softly. "Not when I'm with you, kiddo." It was the truth, or close enough. Back in the apartment, the screens glowed in the dim light. My setup, simple but effective. A laptop, external drive notes pinned to a corkboard like an old ops room. I reviewed the day's recordings pulled from devices they'd never suspect. Jessica's voice coaching Chloe. "If they ask about Daddy, say he gets angry sometimes." Chloe's reluctant response, small and questioning. It twisted my gut, but anger wasn't useful. I filed it away, added to the dossier. Then I expanded my plan. Austin, first his ego was the weak point. I created anonymous online profiles, 3 investors with fabricated backstories, LinkedIn connections, financial articles, chatter in real estate forums. Believable, irresistible. I messaged him about a $50 million luxury condo deal, stroking his vision, calling him unmatched. He bit fast, shifting focus from real work to this phantom opportunity. Jessica's turn came next. She craved spotlight validation as the rising attorney. I nominated her for obscure awards, arranged fake interviews with legal mags inquiries from a phony Manhattan firm about partnerships. She glowed, taking on cases beyond her skill, spending on image upgrades. Cracks formed, overloaded schedule, short temper, and I documented every slip. But the real strike was turning them inward. Using intercepts from their devices, I planted suspicion, a PI's card in Austin's car, fake receipts, suggesting Jessica bought spyware emails in his inbox, hinting she leaked his finances. Then flipped it texts to her, implying he photographed her files. Paranoia bloomed. Jessica hid her phone. Austin changed passwords. Their alliance, built on betrayal, eroded under distrust. I didn't speak. The silence did the work. Chloe's bedtime call came later, her voice sleepy over the line. "Miss you, Daddy." "Miss you more," I replied, my voice steady. This was war, but not the kind with casualties I couldn't control. Patients held the line, and their moves only tightened the noose. The days blurred into a rhythm of vigilance. My apartment, a command center where the hum of the laptop fan was the only sound breaking the quiet. I'd wake before dawn, review intercepts from the night before, texts between Jessica and Austin laced with affection, but edged with strategy. "We need to make him crack." 1. Read Austin's words, dripping with overconfidence. I sipped black coffee, the bitterness matching the knot in my stomach. But I didn't let it fuel anger. Anger clouds judgment. I'd learned that in ops, where one wrong move meant lives lost. Instead, I channeled it into action, precise and invisible. Chloe's weekend visits were my anchor. Her drawings taped to the fridge, a reminder that this shadow game was for her light. We'd bake cookies, the kitchen filling with the warm scent of vanilla, her laughter cutting through the tension I carried. "Why do you look at your computer so much, Daddy?" she'd ask, flower on her nose. "Just work, sweetie," I'd say, ruffling her hair. But it was more than work, it was reclamation. Austin was the first target, his greed a glaring vulnerability. I crafted 3 anonymous online identities each, a facade of international real estate investors with profiles built layer by layer, fabricated LinkedIn networks, planted articles in niche forums, even dummy email trails discussing market trends. They weren't rushed. I spent nights perfecting them, ensuring every detail held under scrutiny. Using these, I dangled the bait, a $50 million luxury condo development messages worded to inflate his ego. "Your portfolio is visionary," one read. "We've followed your rise. Lead our U.S. expansion." He responded within hours, his emails eager, shifting resources from legitimate clients to chase the illusion. I watched him draft renderings, meet planners for non-existent sites, borrow against assets to fuel the momentum. Thousands poured out, his desperation growing with each negotiation I strung along. It was psychological warfare, not brute force, letting his ambition dig the hole. Jessica's weakness was subtler, rooted in her need for acclaim. As an attorney, she thrived on recognition, so I fed it to her like poison disguised as honey. Anonymous nominations for awards she'd never encountered. Phony interview requests from legal publications, flattering queries from a fabricated Manhattan firm hinting at partnership. I routed them through untraceable channels, watching her light up via intercepted calls and emails. "This could be my break," she confided to a colleague, her voice buzzing with excitement. The effect rippled fast. She overloaded her caseload with high-profile matters beyond her expertise, splurged on designer suits and office upgrades, hired a PR consultant on credit. Her temper frayed under the pressure, clients complaining in voicemails I archived. Cracks appeared in her professional facade, ones I documented, meticulously missed deadlines, terse exchanges, the slow erosion of her image. She didn't see the trap, she saw opportunity and it blinded her. But the masterstroke was fracturing their bond, turning allies into suspects without a single direct move. Surveillance from Jessica's devices, apps she'd never suspected I'd mirrored, gave me the tools. I planted a private investigator's business card in Austin's glove compartment during a discreet visit to his parked car, subtle as a shadow. Fake receipts appeared in his wallet suggesting Jessica had purchased spyware. Into his inbox, I inserted emails implying she was leaking his financial details to leverage in the divorce. Then I reversed it, forged texts to her phone hinting Austin was photographing her legal files, perhaps to blackmail her later. The seeds took root quickly. Jessica found the card and panicked, her texts to him accusatory. "What is this? Are you having me followed?" Austin denied, but doubt crept in. He changed passwords, grew terse in responses. She hid her phone during their meetings, their once open communication turning guarded, laced with unspoken suspicions. Jessica began questioning if Austin was mining her for intel on my background, something unprovable but festering. Austin, paranoid about his crumbling deals, wondered if she was siphoning his money, planning to bolt post-divorce. I didn't orchestrate fights. I let the distrust do it, recording every heated call, every slammed door via hidden audio feeds I'd set up in her home office and living room. One night, Jessica paced at 2 a.m., her voice cracking on a voicemail to a friend. "I don't know who to trust anymore." Austin's GPS pings showed frantic drives to empty properties, his emails ranting at contractors pulling out. Their dream built on my ruins was crumbling from stress and selfishness. And all the while, Chloe stayed shielded. Weekends with me meant homework, help, pancake breakfasts, bedtime stories where heroes won through cleverness, not force. In the quiet hours, I'd sit back, screens flickering with their unraveling. Jessica broke a vase in one argument, sobbing that nothing worked anymore. Austin stormed out, calling her delusional. I logged it all, dates, times, transcripts, my dossier swelling like a storm cloud. They thought they were on offense, but they were in my trap, every step orchestrated by their own flaws. I never lifted a finger in court because the real battle was here in their minds. Chloe's latest drawing, a family under a rainbow, sat beside my keyboard, her note, "For Daddy who fixes things." It stung knowing the things were broken by those she loved. But fixing meant patience, and I had plenty. The alliance was cracking. Soon it would shatter. The breaking point loomed as Austin's fake deal bled him dry. He'd overextended, facing foreclosures, pressing Jessica for cash framed as a loan. She saw it as manipulation, especially after finding planted documents in his briefcase, offshore accounts, power of attorney drafts. Panic set in. She called the police, reporting financial foul play. Their fight that night was chaos, accusations flying, all captured on audio behind the foyer vent. Police statements followed, no charges yet, but the incident report landed in public records. I downloaded it within the hour, exhibit ready. Back in my space, I didn't gloat. I archived, planned. They were self-destructing, and my only role was witness. The war edged closer to endgame silence, my unyielding ally. The tension in their communications escalated like a fuse burning shorter, each intercepted message a spark I noted without emotion. I'd set the stage, and now they were performing the unraveling all on their own, their paranoia feeding off the planted doubts like weeds overtaking a garden. Jessica's texts to Austin grew clipped, accusatory. "Why the new passwords? What are you hiding?" His replies were defensive, laced with frustration. "You're the one with the PI card in my car, explain that." I sat in the dim glow of my screens, the apartment's silence broken only by the soft whir of the hard drive backing up files. It was methodical work archiving their dissent, but it carried a weight I hadn't anticipated, the human cost of watching people I once cared about tear themselves apart. Chloe's latest visit had ended with her hugging me tighter than usual, whispering, "Mommy seems mad all the time." I smoothed her hair, promised things would settle, but inside I knew the storm was just building. Their alliance, once solid in its deceit, began to fracture under the weight of suspicion. Jessica questioned Austin's motives more openly, her late-night calls to him turning into interrogations about whether he was using her for leverage against me. "You asked too many questions about Derek's military records." She'd accuse, her voice sharp through the audio feed. Austin, meanwhile, grew convinced she was manipulating his finances, especially as his fake deal drained his resources. He'd borrowed heavily overextended credit lines, and now foreclosure notices piled up in his inbox, ones I monitored via mirrored accounts. He pressed her for money, framing it as a bridge loan until the big project closed. But she saw it as a grab. Her responses laced with distrust. "How do I know you're not setting me up to take the fall?" The arguments escalated, their voices rising in recordings from the home office, where I'd placed a discreet device behind a bookshelf. One night, glass shattered, Jessica hurling a vase in rage, sobbing that everything was falling apart. I didn't intervene. I observed, logging every detail with the precision of a field report. Austin's desperation manifested in erratic behavior, late-night drives to vacant lots he thought were part of the deal, his GPS pings mapping a path of delusion. Emails to phantom investors, me under aliases, grew frantic, promising updates that never materialized. Jessica's professional cracks widened too. Her overloaded cases led to complaints, a missed court date here, a client threatening to switch firms there. I documented it all, screenshots of her firm's internal memos, voicemails from frustrated colleagues. Her ego, puffed up by the fake accolades, made her blind to the overreach, but the stress showed in her pacing at odd hours, her whispered rants into the phone. "Nothing's working anymore," she confessed to Austin during one call, her tone defeated. He snapped back, calling her delusional, storming out mid-conversation. Their selfishness amplified the damage, each blaming the other for the mounting chaos. The planted evidence fueled the fire without mercy. Jessica discovered the forged documents in Austin's briefcase during a visit offshore account, details drafts of power of attorney in her name, and her panic spiked. "You're trying to clean me out," she screamed that evening, the fight erupting in the foyer, every word captured crystal clear on the hidden audio. Accusations flew her, claiming he'd stolen legal files, him retorting that she'd used him to sabotage me from the start. It was ugly, chaotic, their voices overlapping in raw betrayal. Police arrived after a neighbor's call, taking statements in the driveway under flashing lights. No arrests, but the incident report detailed the mess, mutual suspicions of theft, manipulation, emotional distress. I accessed it from public records before the ink dried, saving it as another exhibit in my archive. Back in my apartment, the city lights blurring through the rain-streaked window, I reviewed the tape, my coffee cooling untouched. No gloating, just confirmation that their flaws were doing the work. Chloe remained my constant, her weekends a brief oasis. We'd walk in the park, leaves crunching underfoot, her small hand in mine as she chatted about a school play or a new book. But I noticed the shadows in her eyes, the way she'd hesitate before mentioning Mommy or Uncle Austin. "They fight a lot," she confided once, kicking a pebble. I knelt to her level, my voice steady. "Sometimes grown-ups make mistakes, but we fix them with truth." She nodded, hugging me, and I felt the weight of protecting her innocence amid the wreckage. Unbeknownst to me then, she was already taking steps of her own, her tablet becoming a tool in ways I'd never intended. I'd taught her about evidence, about standing up when something felt wrong, but I hadn't realized how deeply she'd absorbed it. As the weeks wore on, their meltdowns intensified. Austin screamed at contractors over pulled deals, his business communications a torrent of excuses. Jessica's career teetered. A bar complaint surfaced from a dissatisfied client, her suspension looming like a shadow. Their once passionate affair soured into bitterness, late-night arguments devolving into silence. I captured it all, video from discreet cams showing her alone, head in hands, audio of him ranting in his car. The trap was closing, their own actions tightening the springs. In the quiet moments, I'd stare at Chloe's photo on my desk, her smile a beacon. This wasn't revenge. It was justice, measured and inevitable. They thought they controlled the narrative, but the cracks were widening, and soon the whole structure would collapse. The final push came subtly, their distrust reaching a boil. Jessica changed locks on the house. Austin hired a low-rent PI to tail her, ironic given the seeds I'd sown. Their communications dwindled to necessities, the love that sparked the betrayal now ashes. I logged the decline, my dossier complete, ready for the moment truth would step into the light. Patience had brought us here. Now it would deliver the end. The courtroom loomed in my mind like an impending skirmish, the kind where preparation decided victory long before the first shot. I'd spent the night before reviewing my dossier, the files organized in digital folders labeled by date and incident, each one a testament to their self-inflicted wounds. Jessica and Austin's unraveling had accelerated their arguments now, public fodder and small-town whispers. But I kept my focus narrow. Chloe's safety, the truth's emergence. I hadn't anticipated her role, though. That revelation came like a quiet dawn, shifting the battlefield in ways even my plans couldn't foresee. Patricia Mills had called me that morning, her voice steady over the line. "We have something new. Chloe wants to speak." My heart paused, a father's instinct clashing with strategy. I'd taught her about evidence, about right and wrong, but never imagined she'd wield it herself. "Let her," I said, trusting her strength, the moral compass I'd helped shape. Chloe had been recording everything, her tablet, a secret vault of truths she'd captured independently. It started small, she later told me, overhearing Jessica's late-night calls, the coaching sessions, where Mommy instructed her on what to say about Daddy. "If the social worker asks, tell them he gets angry," Jessica would say, her tone coaxing, almost gentle. Chloe, small but perceptive, felt the wrongness in her bones. I'd always told her, if something feels off, document it. Truth wins if you're patient. She took it to heart, hitting record during those moments, her child's intuition guiding her. The files piled up, Jessica crying after visits with Austin, admitting to Chloe that Uncle Austin makes Mommy happy, but we have to keep it secret. Then the damning ones planning lies for court, rehearsing tears, Austin's voice in the background joking about making the vet look crazy. Chloe didn't tell me. She confided in Patricia during a supervised visit, handing over the tablet with a solemnity beyond her years. "Daddy says lying is wrong," she explained. I had to help. The build-up to the hearing felt electric. The air in my apartment charged as I dressed in my suit, the fabric crisp against my skin. I met Patricia outside the courthouse, Chloe between us, her hand in mine, clutching the tablet like a shield. "You sure about this, kiddo?" I asked, kneeling to her level, the stone steps cold under my knee. She nodded, eyes clear. "Yes, Daddy, it's the right thing." Pride swelled in me, mixed with ache. She shouldn't have to carry this, but her courage mirrored mine, forged in quieter fires. We entered the room, the wood-paneled walls absorbing the murmurs, Judge Wright already at the bench, her glasses perched as she reviewed notes. Hoffman paced, confident, Austin in his usual spot, smirking faintly. Jessica looked composed, but I saw the strained dark circles under her makeup fingers twisting a tissue. They had no idea the tide was turning. The hearing resumed, with Hoffman's flair recapping accusations, but Patricia interrupted, subtly requesting Chloe address the court. Hoffman objected, voice rising. "This child has been manipulated." Judge Wright silenced him with a hand. "I'll decide." Chloe stood, small frame straight, walking to the bench with the tablet. She tapped play and her voice filled the room, innocent, questioning. "Mommy, why are you always crying when you come home from Uncle Austin's house?" Jessica's response strained. "I'm not crying, sweetheart. Mommy's just tired." Then Chloe, "But Uncle Austin makes you sad and he's mean to Daddy." The pause hung heavy, then Jessica's calculated words. "Sometimes we have to say things that aren't completely true to protect the people we love." Chloe's reply, "But Daddy says lying is always wrong." The recording continued, exposing coaching sessions plans to portray me as unstable, Austin's chuckles in the background. "If we play this right, the judge will think he's unstable. We just need a few good tears." The room froze. Breaths held as Jessica's own voice damned her admissions of perjury, witness tampering, parental alienation. Chloe stepped back, her task done, while Jessica paled, Hoffman stammering. Judge Wright blinked, turning to Chloe. "Where did you get this?" "I recorded it on my tablet," she said quietly. "Daddy taught me that if someone is doing something wrong, you should keep evidence. The truth always wins if you're patient enough." Jessica stood, cracking. "She's been coached." The judge cut her off. "Sit down, Mrs. Montrose." Chloe looked at her mother. "I love you, Mommy, but I can't live with someone who lies. Daddy never lies." She returned to her seat, my hand on her shoulder, a silent affirmation. For the first time, Judge Wright regarded me with respect, not suspicion. The silence lingered, the recording's echo reshaping the narrative. Jessica collapsed into her chair, the poised mother gone, replaced by someone trapped in her web. Hoffman gathered papers, speechless. I felt no triumph, only relief. The truth had surfaced without my direct hand. Chloe's bravery, the catalyst. Outside, waiting for paperwork, I knelt beside her again. "You didn't have to," I whispered. She smiled faintly. "I know, but we protect our family, right?" Her words echoed mine, a legacy of integrity blooming early. The storm peaked, but we'd held the line. The courtroom hung in stunned silence, the echo of Jessica's recorded voice lingering like smoke after gunfire. I sat motionless, my hand still on Chloe's shoulder, feeling the slight tremble in her small frame, but her chin stayed lifted, resolute. The weight of the moment pressed down the air, thick with unspoken realizations, years of my silence, my patience culminating not in my words, but in hers. Judge Wright flipped through her notes slowly, her expression shifting from surprise to steely determination, the pen in her hand pausing mid-stroke. Hoffman shuffled papers, his face flushed, whispering urgently to Jessica, who stared ahead, unblinking, her perfect facade cracking like thin ice. Austin shifted in his seat, the smirk gone, replaced by a flicker of unease as he realized the performance had turned against them. No one breathed easily. The truth had landed heavier than any argument, a child's honesty dismantling the lies with quiet precision. Judge Wright broke the hush, her voice measured but firm. "I am granting full legal and physical custody of Chloe Montrose to her father, effective immediately." The words cut through the room, sharp and final. Jessica gasped, a soft sound barely audible, her hand flying to her mouth as she swayed in her chair. "Furthermore," the judge continued, "I am ordering a criminal investigation into the plaintiff's conduct during these proceedings. The evidence raises serious concerns regarding perjury, witness tampering, and parental alienation. This court will not tolerate the weaponization of children." Hoffman stood halfway, mouth opening in protest, but Wright's glare silenced him. "Mr. Hoffman, advise your client wisely. She's no longer speaking as a mother, she's a defendant under investigation." Jessica collapsed back, tears streaming now, unscripted and raw. "Your Honor, please," she whispered, voice breaking. "Chloe doesn't understand. She's just a child." The judge held up a hand. "Sit down, Mrs. Montrose, you've said enough." The gallery emptied in murmurs, spectators filing out with wide eyes, the drama they'd come for, twisting into something unforeseen. Patricia Mills gathered her things, calmly nodding to me as the bailiff approached. "Mr. Montrose, Judge Wright requests a brief meeting with Child Services to formalize the transfer. It won't take long." I stood Chloe beside me, her tablet tucked under her arm like a talisman. We walked out together, Jessica's eyes following us, pleading but silent. She didn't call out, didn't protest. For once, the manipulator had nothing left to leverage. Outside the courtroom, in the hushed hallway with its echoing tiles, I knelt beside Chloe again, the fluorescent lights casting long shadows. "You were brave in there," I said softly, brushing a strand of hair from her face. She nodded, eyes shimmering. "It was scary, but I had to. For us." Pride swelled in me, mingled with sorrow. She'd grown up too fast in this mess, but her strength was a mirror of the lessons I'd lived by. The paperwork session was straightforward, a small office down the hall where a social worker reviewed forms, Chloe coloring quietly at a side table. "This is unusual," the worker admitted, glancing at me. "But the evidence was compelling. We'll monitor for a transition period, but custody is yours." I signed where indicated, my hand steady, the pen's scratch a punctuation to the chaos. Chloe packed her crayons, slipping her hand into mine as we left. The sun broke through clouds outside the courthouse, warming the steps as reporters hovered nearby, microphones ready but hesitant. I shielded Chloe, walking past without comment. The war wasn't about headlines, it was about her future, secure now. In the car, she buckled in, staring out the window. "What happens to Mommy?" she asked quietly. I chose words carefully, keeping my tone even. "She'll face consequences, but remember, she loves you in her way. We focus on us now." She nodded, leaning back, the weight lifting slightly. "Back home, our home again." Jessica's things already in storage per the order. I unpacked Chloe's bag, the familiar sense of laundry and books grounding me. She ran to her room, emerging with a drawing she'd hidden a family under sunny skies, no storms in sight. "For our new start," she said. I taped it to the fridge, hugging her close. The immediate fallout hit Jessica hard. By evening, news trickled in via Patricia's update: Hoffman withdrawing the bar, initiating review, Jessica isolated in her hotel. Austin slunk away, his presence erased from the narrative he'd tried to script. I didn't revel. Satisfaction came from Chloe's safety, the peace settling like dusk. That night, as she slept, I sat on the porch, the cool air wrapping around me, reflecting on the path, silence as strategy, truth as the ultimate ally. The consequences were theirs to bear, self-inflicted, while we moved forward unbroken. The ripple effects spread quickly, but I kept our routine: steady breakfast together, school drop-off, her stories filling the evenings. Jessica's calls came tentative, but Chloe wasn't ready, and I respected that. Trust mends slowly, if at all. My dossier stayed filed away unused now that the court had seen enough. Patience had won, not rage, and in Chloe's eyes I saw the legacy, integrity enduring. The days after the hearing unfolded like the calm after a long deployment, the adrenaline fading into a quiet routine that felt both familiar and new. Chloe and I settled back into the house, her room a burst of color with posters and toys, reclaiming their space, the air smelling of fresh laundry and the pancakes I'd make each morning. She'd wake with tousled hair, padding downstairs in pajamas, her smile chasing away the shadows of the past months. We didn't talk much about the courtroom at first. Instead, we built new memories: bike rides in the park, where leaves swirled in the autumn breeze, homework sessions at the kitchen table with mugs of hot cocoa steaming between us. Her laughter echoed through the halls again, a sound I'd missed like a lifeline, reminding me that victory wasn't in destruction, but in this simple preservation of what mattered most. Jessica's absence lingered like a faint echo, but Chloe's resilience shone through, her questions about mommy coming softer now, laced with a child's hope for healing. Austin fell first, his empire crumbling under the weight of illusions I'd crafted, but he'd chased with reckless greed. News reports trickled in, investors suing over the fraudulent $50 million development, his accounts frozen, properties foreclosed. By week's end, he was in custody, facing charges of fraud and embezzlement, his confident swagger replaced by handcuffs and silence in grainy photos from the precinct. I didn't seek out the details. They came via Patricia's updates, neutral and factual, confirming what I'd anticipated. His downfall was self